spoke of so many years ago when he said there are 1,000 ways to kiss the earth. My guest for this evening is Brad Moser, psychologist. Brad and I are going to have a nice chat about psychology things, probably. That'd be a good thing, right? And
Probably.
counseling and being a good dad and helping out young people to develop well, those kind of things. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Alan. I just have two things I wanted to say before we get started. That's all right?
Sure.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to give a happy belated Mother's Day. A greeting to all the moms out there, and just appreciate all the hard work you do all year round with loving for, caring for our kids, and just being the best that you can for our children. So I appreciate that. My second thing is that Alan, I really appreciate you. I think we met in January or February this year.
Yeah,
I think, and I always, and I remember the time we met, and I appreciate your energy when we met, and I appreciate your energy every other encounter I've had with you. So.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and this is gonna be a lot of fun, Brad. And I'm 100% with you about the mothers and recognize the mothers. Man, the women. I have a belief that women are the better human beings. And why I say that, basically the contribution they make to our society versus men. And I'm not saying you and I are bad. I'm just saying women are better. Men, with raising kids and doing all the things they do, and all of the service type work is mostly the women who do that work, right? So anyways, I'm that's my belief. But anyways, Brad, you have a show called Real Dads, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Real Dads. Yeah, Real Dads on Jess FM. Yeah. So it's on Jess FM, same station here, and it's the last Tuesday morning of every month. And on my show, it's half hour. I talk about topics that affect dads and moms. It's a show for dads and moms. It's for parents, and it's about how we can be the best parent we can, the best dad, the best mom, how we can show up every day with our kids, and just really to seize the opportunity of trying to raise good children. I have guests on the show usually who talk about different areas that affect dads and moms, and it's a great show. I really enjoyed it. It started last year for me when it was called Super Dads, and that started in May, and it's just been a great opportunity for me as a dad as well, because it helps me be the best dad that I can be as well.
And you got two boys, right, Brad?
Yes, I have two boys. So I have Shay is 9 now, and Rhett is 3. He'll be turning 4 soon. And with COVID-19, it's definitely, as with a lot of parents, been challenging with adjusting to all of a sudden being in crisis homeschooling teacher mode, and just trying to figure out what to do with our kids in March when we were told that school is canceled. But there's also been some great opportunities for me that's come through that, and that's the opportunity to really get to see our children in a different light, get them to see what they're like at school, because we're with them every day and doing schoolwork at home. Also, great opportunities to bond with the kids, and so I've really appreciated that as well.
So I'm certain you're a good counselor. Are you a good teacher? Are you a good home teacher, or what?
Oh gosh, that's been the adjustment for sure. That's been a big learning curve for me, for sure. So, I mean, my wife and I have been, I'm blessed to have a great wife and a great mom, and we've been involved with our kids' school for their whole life, right? We've gone to parent interviews, and we've met with the teachers and gone to school events just about every time we can, and if we can make it, we try our best to accommodate to make it. So we've really tried to be front and center with our kids' education. But this has been a big learning curve, because this really put pressure on us to really step up every day to try to make it purposeful for them. I know that Alberta Education has set it up where they're saying that we're only expecting you to spend 1 hour a day for the younger kids and 2 hours maybe for the older. Well, I mean, that's how much they're supposed to be doing, the kids, but we've gone beyond that, just because we found that an hour just wasn't enough for our kids for what they need, and so we've really tried to make that work. We've been lucky enough to be working from home for both of us, so that gave us the opportunity of making it easier to shift between where I'll take the mornings and then my wife will take the afternoons. So we've been able to shift that with our kids.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm sure that is quite a different experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? From,
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
having like maybe a
Mm-hmm.
limited amount of discussion about academic type pursuits that your kids are doing,
Yeah.
that to being more hands-on and more understanding the level they're at and what they
Yeah.
learn, what they are
Yeah.
learning, right? It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's huge. I have such a big appreciation and admiration for teachers. I think they don't get enough acknowledgement and gratitude and appreciation for what they do. There's been ever since I've been a kid, there's been a lot of debate with teachers on how much they're paid and everything, but they deserve a lot of recognition and more than they deserve and more than they get because now that us parents are faced with the task of teaching them and having to deal with their own emotional regulation and anxiety and everything that all the mental health related stuff we're trying to deal with COVID-19 and trying to work from home and trying to balance that. I mean, it's just an amazing challenge. But yeah, teachers they have a lot to offer when it comes to teaching kids, understanding kids, trying to do the best we can to support them. Like it's a big task, and so I'm starting to really see how important they are in our lives, our
Yeah,
teachers.
no kidding. And they would also be really, I mean, they're the ones that really know, like when there's kids that have challenges, right? That they
Right.
come to school
Yeah.
and they haven't eaten and they look disheveled and they haven't
Yeah.
probably haven't slept
Hmm.
much, those kind of
Hmm.
things, right? They're the
Right.
ones that have to kind of
Hmm.
try and make that work when the child really isn't at a point to be able to learn very well, right? Or even
Yeah.
to kind of be a good classroom citizen is pretty
Right.
challenging if they're having challenges like that in their life, right? So
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah.
And your counseling service is all about
Hmm.
predominantly do with uh, parents and children, right? And childhood
Well,
development.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how it started for me. So Alan, so previous to my employment right now, I was working at Family Center for over 12 years, and I got an amazing experience there of working a lot with parents and families and children and couples and individuals, adults as well, people without kids and stuff. That I experienced the whole gamut there with experience, and that's just wonderful experience. And then ever since beginning of March, I've been in private practice at Associates Counseling Services, and that's been an amazing experience as well with that experience. But I've tended to just because of my previous experience, fallen into working a lot with families and couples and children and youth as well now in my current job, along with other good opportunities like working with adults and continuing to do the work that I've been doing for so long. Of course, now with COVID-19, I've been seeing a huge increase in anxiety and mental health related concerns from COVID-19, but anxiety is the biggest one. There's been a lot of that.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's a tough go. I know that
Mhm.
you know, depending on where you're at, this could be a very good time for you, right? But
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw when Roy Pogo and I were chatting,
Right.
but we were talking that we're like in a little bit different place, and for us, this is kind of a
Mhm.
whole day, a whole time where we can kind of recreate a little bit, right? Try some
Right.
different things and learn some
Yeah.
different things, and
Right. Mhm.
he was taking a course and learning some new things and
Mhm.
film editing because he had a passion
Oh,
about
yeah.
film editing. Never took the
Yeah.
time to do it. Now he had time, right? I took a
Mhm.
writing course just recently. I can
Mhm.
write some, but like I
Mhm.
want to improve my writing and my ability to tell stories and that kind of thing. So I
Mhm.
have some time to invest in that, and so it's
Oh.
kind of a
Mhm.
you know after you might look back and say, holy shit,
Mhm.
that was like a
Mhm.
period of time, a big growth period of time, personal growth and development type
Yeah.
time. Could be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, if you're on the other side and every day is miserable and you're with
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who aren't looking out for
Yeah.
your best interests and you don't have enough
Mhm.
food and you're,
Mhm.
all of those things where
Mhm. Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
before COVID, it was
Mhm.
easy to be away, and now you can't be away,
Right.
and that environment is not a healthy environment. Let's say
Yeah.
it makes it
Yeah.
way worse, right? So
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think this is in terms of mental health, I think this is definitely going to have a devastating impact on us. And I don't think it's, I'm starting to see now is, and you're hearing it more on social media and just on the news and stuff that, who knows what the normal will be now, right?
Right.
Is there going to be a new normal, or is it going to be, I don't think things are really going to go back to normal. Like I'm not really seeing that anymore. Like, and so I think definitely mental health is going to be a big priority. I think it should be now for sure, but I think it'll become even more as things start, the restrictions start to be lifted and stuff, and we start to deal with, oh yeah, I thought since day one, when there was so much talk about social distancing and staying away from people, I thought, well, this isn't, all these practices good for keeping the disease controlled, and that's absolutely important when it comes to stopping the spread and preventing people from dying for sure. But what about our mental health, right? That's kind of being put compromised because of that.
Definitely, man. Just, I mean, you think about um, beneficial touch that
Yeah,
we people do, like hugs,
yeah,
pats on the back,
yeah.
that that mean a lot to us or have meant a lot to us in the past, right? I'm a
Hmm.
big hugger. Like that's going to be a
Hmm.
problem for me to not hug
Yeah,
people. Like,
yeah,
that,
absolutely. Yeah,
you see, oh,
yeah,
hey, how are you? And
yeah.
that'll be a challenge. So yeah,
For sure. And we do, that's a basic human need that we have, Alan, is touch.
yeah,
That's a big human need that we have. And that's unfortunately not being met a lot, right? I mean, maybe within our immediate family or intimate relationships, but like people we normally maybe hug and greet and shake hands with at work or with the friends, other family, like that's unfortunately not being there. And I just wrote a blog on this not too long ago. I published it last week on the Associates Counseling Services website about what bereavement looks like right now when somebody close to you dies. How hard that is nowadays, right? Because
right,
you can't.
yeah,
It's hard to traditionally, like what really helps with the bereavement process is having a funeral, traditional funeral, where you do have lots of people show up and people
right.
showing their condolences and hugging you and shaking your hand and being close to you. Unfortunately, right now, as the restrictions are, I think, is still you can't have more than 15 or 10 people in that room, or you can have multiple showings and stuff, but you can only have so many people, and you can't get close to people, and you can't shake hands and stuff like that. So it just that really makes it difficult.
Yeah, no kidding. I know my sister passed away March 20th.
Mm.
And like, so then we were in social distancing then. And
Yeah.
so the last couple days when we knew she was passing for sure, like I didn't go visit her and she
Mhm.
passed away and there's no funeral,
Mhm.
no nothing. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, it's a, I don't know how that's going to play out later on. Like, if there's going to be whatever in November,
Yeah.
there's going to be 10 funerals every day or
Yeah.
something. I don't know how that's going to work, but
Yeah.
there's, because there people will still probably need that experience to
Yeah.
kind of say goodbye and say
Yeah.
whatever they say when the person was alive, right? So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, and I feel for you. Like my brother passed away a few years ago. Was it 5 or 6 years ago? The funeral was such a huge part of the bereavement process. That was
yeah,
such a big help, right? And I could like I feel for the people that can have that. That must be really tough because it seems like the bereavement process is like stuck. It's like frozen in a way. It doesn't have to be. There are things you can do to try to get closure. Closure is not the best word. I don't really like that word, but to try to find peace and to try to say goodbye and stuff like that. There's definitely things that you can do, but it's still really difficult when you feel like you can't do that. So almost you feel like it feels really weird. Maybe it feels like, yeah, I don't know what I should be feeling, and maybe you might have some sudden glimpses of emotion and grief and loss, but you're not really sure what to do with it. And it could just be really unfortunate. And of course, all this uncertainty we have doesn't help with anything right now,
yeah,
right?
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, yeah, it's a challenging time. And when you're chatting about like nobody knows what like the new normal is going to be, well, it's
Mhm.
sure it's going to be a lot. It's going to be markedly different than the pre-COVID
Mhm.
normal. I believe
Yeah,
it can be
yeah,
quite different, right? So,
yeah.
and some industries even like they're just going
Mhm.
to change forever. I believe
Mhm.
it's it'll be quite interesting how this plays out. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Can't say we don't live in interesting times, anyways.
No.
Hey,
Yeah.
why do you not like closure? Because it's never really closed. It's just kind of
Oh, just the word itself. I think there is. I agree with. Like I think it depends on how it's used. So what I particularly don't like when it comes to bereavement, because I've been doing a lot of therapy for grief and loss, bereavement counseling in my career. Um, and that come many different areas. I've done it through the death of somebody. It could also be from divorce and separation and other types of loss that we could experience, right? But I think there is some definitely good advice out there that you can find on how to grieve in a healthy way. But then there's also maybe not so good advice out there, and some of it comes from when we have the best intentions, where we might say things like, be strong and move on, and you're going to get past this, and it's like, well, and I kind of write about this in the blog that I wrote, that it's not something you really ever get past. It's something that it's a lifelong thing, especially somebody close to you, like a sister, or brother, somebody close to you, like a spouse, a child. Like that's not anything you ever get over. It's something that is a part of your life, and I think that's maybe my personal thing when it comes to the word closure, because I think it might have a connotation with getting over something, or forgetting it, not forgetting about it, but just kind of moving on, when it's something that maybe does get a little bit easier over time as time goes on. The initial crisis stage of the grief and loss in the morning kind of gets a little bit easier to function in daily life. But as we go on in our life, it's not something that we say, oh, okay, that it doesn't mean anything anymore. It'll always mean something, and it'll always have a significance in your life, and it's perfectly healthy to keep honoring the life of the loved one, by talking about memories and sharing stories and stuff like that, and celebrating them in different ways, whether it's to go visit them at the grave site once a year or whatever it is, or at certain special holidays like their birthday, to celebrate in some way. And to kind of take the use being aware of, and exploring how the loss has changed your life, and how that person has changed your life, and how significant they are to you, and they'll always be there. So knowing that they'll always be a part of your life, and that's a good thing, right? There's a lot of goodness that can come from that.
yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of went.
Go ahead.
What's that? Oh, I was just saying, I kind of went on a big spiel there on my soapbox, but I just wanted to mention on that it's not something we ever get, I think, closure with. It's more of a, maybe we find peace, maybe we find meaning in it, which is really important as well, and find purpose in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it related to me. I had the thought while you were speaking that it's
Oh,
sort of like our discussion about COVID. There's kind of a
right,
new reality
right,
without that person in that reality, kind of a thing. That's what you
right.
have to kind of accept, that that's
Yeah,
a new reality. This person is no
yeah,
longer here. All you have is their
yeah,
memories and
yeah,
those
yeah.
things. So yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of it's related, and that's what's happening. I mean, when grief, there's a lot of grief and loss right now with so many things with COVID-19, right? Because a lot of people lost their job. A lot of people, you've lost a normal way of doing things. Temporarily, at least, you've lost a lot of things, like going to the gym and your regular routine of getting a haircut and all that stuff, right? I mean, some of that stuff is starting to come back, and there's phasing in that, but it's still like there's still that grief and loss that we've all gone through. And then on top of that, if you have somebody close to you die, well, then it makes it harder, right? Because there's more loss.
Do you think that we're relaxing the social distancing rules too fast, or do you think it's appropriate?
It's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. It does seem like it's a really kind of quick. It seems like that's the sense I get from other people too. Like I think it was a couple weeks ago maybe, where Premier Kenny now said, okay, now we're gonna do things differently. We're gonna start phasing in all this stuff, and it's like, wow, that happened pretty abrupt. Like I thought before you were saying, well, this is going to be a long process and everything. So I don't know. It just seemed like it was pretty abrupt. And I think a lot of, from what I'm hearing, a lot of uh, companies and people are starting to get used to how do we do this now? Like, okay, so we're supposed to open tomorrow. Like if you're, I don't know, if you're a hair salon or if you're a restaurant or whatever it was, the first phase. So what do we do now, right? Or for essential services. So as a psychologist, um, we fit in that kind of non-essential health service. So like we're still waiting to hear back from the College of our Psychologists, our governing body, and how to proceed with this, right? But it's like, okay, so we haven't got those regulations yet, but once they come in, if they say things like, okay, you have to wear you have to wear PPEs, you have to wear masks, or you have to do this and this, and it's like, okay, well, how long is it going to take for us to roll that out, and how long is it going to take for us to get masks? So it just seems like it's a lot of things to work through. Pretty
So
complicated.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, there's a lot of steps, a lot of, and you're like everybody's trying to figure out how to do this. I was talking to somebody who has a gym, but it's a gym where it's very, very hard aerobically. It's a very challenging aerobic
Right.
workout. So when you think of how much volume of air people are expelling when they're working out
Right.
hard, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe the
Mhm.
6 feet ain't cutting it
Mhm.
anymore either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But tell me this: how do you like You've done the online counseling. This would be your first go at it, right?
Right.
Until now, everything's been one-on-one, personal, right?
Face to face. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
face to
all been
face.
face to
How
face. Yeah.
how is this working out for you doing the online counseling now?
Well, that's been a big adjustment too. That's been a big learning curve. First of all, I'm not very before this whole COVID thing happened. I mean, I'm so traditional and so like I'm kind of old fogyish. Like I was just not into technology. I didn't want to change. Right? I was kind of stuck in the '90s. Early '90s when we didn't have the internet and it was kind of everything seemed so easy.
Early
I was
90s. You were born early 90s.
I was a teenager, but you know what? The reason it was easier is because I was, a teenager, but I wasn't a grown up. But anyway, the that was an opportunity there because I'm on Twitter now. I'm on Facebook more. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn. Like I'm just more involved in that, and also with online therapy, telehealth. That's been a great opportunity too because um, it's helped me kind of expand my horizon because I've been so used to face-to-face counseling. When I first heard about, okay, now we have to do it online, I was like, whoa, how do you do that? What's going to happen? How do you do this? How is this going to work out? It's actually been really good. Luckily now there's a lot of companies and a lot of software that have put out teleconferencing software and stuff. Like a lot of that has come out since COVID-19, right? So it's been easy doing it, the actual technology part. At the same time, though, I'm still traditional in that on or face-to-face therapy is so much more effective, I find, right, for the therapist and for the
Hmm.
clients.
Hmm.
It depends. Like we're moving into a different age now, and especially now with COVID-19. So I think it will become more popular. I can still do it. I definitely will still do it once whatever happens, new normal. Um, because a lot of people just respond better that way. It makes sense that if you're already overwhelmed with a lot of different mental health related and emotional problems, and to the idea of going out of your comfort zone, going to a counseling agency, sitting down, going through intake, meeting like, and then meeting a stranger and opening up to them, it just seems like way too overwhelming. But it's so much easier just to go onto your device or your computer, laptop, your iPhone, and just log it in and talking to somebody, right? So there's a lot of benefit in that. But at the same time, as a therapist, and I've always found this, it's so much easier to gauge people when you meet them face to face, right? They're
Sure.
right in front of you. You can read their nonverbal communication, their gestures. You can, especially with couples and families, you can see everybody in the room at the same time. If you want to give them a handout, you just reach out and give it to them. If you want to use your whiteboard, if you want to use anything, any other kind of thing you might use in counseling, it's right at your disposal. But yeah, this online has been quite the learning curve for me. But yeah, I
But you
would
are getting, I'm sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt. I
That's
see what
good.
you're saying, but you are saying that people seem to be more receptive to doing that. It's easier for them to do that. Not as good for you to do the job you want to
Yeah.
do. Easier for
Yeah.
them to engage that way as opposed to make an appointment and come and see. It's
It
scarier to do
could.
that in person than it is over a screen, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it could. Yeah, there's definitely benefit in that. At the same time, though, I've heard a lot from clients who, once we did go to telehealth and only online counseling, they didn't want to do that, right? Because of they find it much more helpful for me to be there face to face with them. And I think whenever you have something where we're talking right now, I think if we're talking just the two of us face to face, I would enjoy it more, Alan. I would find it more in a way kind of like friendly. I find it more like, okay, we're there for each other. As a therapist, I feel a lot more of a connection with people, and I think they do too. Because from what I've heard from some clients, right? Whereas online, it's kind of like, okay, well, it's kind of like a barrier in a way for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if there's any silver lining to it, though, if it encourages
Mhm.
people to access it who would otherwise find it too
Yeah.
scary, then that's a
Right.
good thing. Like that's
For
one
sure.
thing that I think the whole, all of COVID-19, I think has eliminated a lot of
Mhm.
stigma for getting
Yeah.
assistance if you have a mental health issue, because
Yeah.
mental health challenges are so prevailing.
Yeah.
Everybody has them to some
Everybody.
degree, right?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Like doesn't
That's
matter how
that.
rich you
Yeah.
are, or what color you are, or man,
Yeah.
woman, doesn't make a child. Everybody has the uncertainty and really doesn't know what to do. Like,
Mhm.
okay, well, this
Mhm.
is you really have to kind of live for today
Mhm.
and then know that at some point you're going to get a new normal that's going to be okay. So, so
Absolutely. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's an opportunity too. Is that everybody's going through the same thing when it comes to COVID-19, right? It's not like whenever Katrina happened, Hurricane Katrina. It's like, oh God, that sounds so terrible for those people that are there, right? Well, for the rest of us, we can see pictures of it in videos, but we don't really know. Now everybody knows. Everybody knows what we're going through. I
Exactly.
mean, definitely some people experience it harder than others, especially if you've had previous mental health related concerns or you've had some trauma in your life that can be triggered by all this for sure. But we're all going through, we all know, we all have that shared empathy for each other in that we know
Right.
what's happening.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's hopefully it's something that will lead to kind of a more general caring, if you will, for brothers and sisters that you have everywhere in the world because they're all experiencing the same thing you are, right? And
Yeah.
not certain of what's going to happen in the future. So that's the way
Yeah.
I see it. So yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. Is your
Yeah.
wife a counselor as well?
No, luckily she's not. She's on the opposite end. She's very good with numbers and math, and so
Ah,
she's a statistical analyst. So she works at the University of Lethbridge, and she's a manager of institutional analysis. So works a
okay.
lot with demographics, statistics, and numbers, which is not one of my strengths. I'm better with like, and so it works out great for our kids because she'll often teach them math, right? And I'll teach them like language arts and spelling and reading and stuff like that. One of my strengths, right? So
Right.
it's a nice balance, right? And so when it comes to things like numbers or balancing things or whatever, like she's just really good with that. But when it comes to things like, interpersonal skills, or it comes to things like mental health related things, like I'm usually the one that can step in and help out with that kind of thing. Right?
Who manages the home finances?
Oh, definitely her. She's much better. Oh yeah, yeah. She has an MBA and she has her undergrad. She did a major in finance too. So yeah, yeah. Just,
Nice.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. And whenever like I have questions, she's always a great person to ask when it comes to anything money related, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. Cool.
yeah, yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. I think, as I mentioned, I think it would be too much if we were both therapists because then it would be like, I don't know. I think it'd be cool because we'd get each other a lot, but at the same time, it's like, well, I know of a lot of, and I've been doing couples counseling for many years, that a lot of times couples, partners kind of balance each other out in some ways, right? So they do
Right.
often share similar things, like they have shared interests and stuff, but then there's other things that balance each other out, and it's kind of like a complement. They complement each other, right?
Right.
And that kind of, a lot of times when we seek partners, like when we're going into that dating zone and stuff, we're looking for people that have, you know, their strengths kind of complement our strengths, or that the things that we appreciate and admire about them is things that are different than us that we kind of feel like are missing in our life, and we like that and we want to be around that.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my volunteer gigs is with the Victim Services Unit, the one that works with the RCMP detachments.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have seen huge, huge increases, and COVID has only exacerbated that. Huge increases in domestic violence, especially domestic
Mm.
violence, sexual and
Right.
violence against
Yeah.
children, right?
Uh,
And that's like, man, so sad. And
mm.
I'm sure you've had, here's what I'm looking for, Brad, a success story where somebody had a high ACEs score, but through your intervention and maybe others on your team, kind of a thing, that you're able to
Mm-hmm.
get that person, that
Mm-hmm.
young man or woman, on a right path, that they're going to have a good life. Tell me a success story.
Sure. And of course, I got to be careful with confidential information, of
I
course. So
understand.
whenever I do, I totally understand. Whenever I share success stories or stories like that of any kind, obviously I take steps to disguise personal, confidential, private
Please,
information, of course.
please.
But well, you mentioned ACEs scores. So ACEs are the adverse childhood experiences, and there's about 10 of them. And I know you talked with Peter Imhoff about this when you had him a couple of shows ago. So basically, you're looking at early childhood experiences that were traumatic in some way, and there's about 10 of them. And if the higher you score on those 10, the more of those adverse child experiences that you have, the more likely that you're going to experience health problems later on in your life, which can include things like I think even diabetes is on there, heart risks and stuff like that, all different kinds of potential health risks. Um, so when you have that, so the thing is though, Alan, so in my line of work, I've been doing this for over 12 years. There is it's great when you get every once in a while you get a client who is relatively straightforward. It's like, okay, I want to work on improving my emotional regulation. I want to manage my anger better. I want to get along better with my partner or my kids, right? You're relatively straightforward in that you go through with that. Sometimes, oftentimes, what they present, the client is actually there's a lot more deeper things going on, right, than what they present. They might, like a couple of them might say, I want to work on my communication, but there's actually a lot of stuff underneath that needs to be worked through. But relatively, if you have somebody who doesn't have a lot of aces, like maybe one or zero or two, generally it can go pretty smoothly when it comes to counseling, and you can feel successful at the end as a counselor. Okay, I helped this client achieve their goals. They're ready to move on without counseling. Great, right? When you get the more complex cases where you have people with like 7, 8, 9, or 10 aces, right? It becomes more complicated. It becomes harder as a therapist. So you have somebody present not just with mental health related problems, but substance abuse, domestic violence, maybe a bit of child abusing kids, or and as they were growing up, they grew up with child abuse and trauma, right? Then you have a lot more to work with and a lot more to unpack in that therapy. So the chances that I've noticed as a therapist for you to see success with them are harder because those people, there is definitely a lot of potential for growth and a potential for recovery, and I've seen it. I've seen a lot of healing with people in those situations, but it is a slower process. It does take more baby steps to get there. Does that make sense? So as
Oh
a
yeah.
therapist, I might not see a lot of that because I may see them for a period or a year or something, and then they may move on to somebody else, and they may take a break and go somewhere else. So those ones do take a bit longer of time, and it is possible, and it can be achieved for sure. Um, but I think if I were to use a general success story, I would say um, one individual who had quite high on the ACEs score, and um, and I think the original goals of the original presenting problem was just to be able to manage stress better. But of course, as I went deeper and with that, then there's a lot more there. There's trauma, and there's addictions, and there's mental health related concerns, right? So that's where through working with that person, and even that person trusting me and being able to share things, and eventually open up and go deeper, which can take quite a few sessions just to get there, right? Just to develop that trust, and to know, to make that, for her to, this or him to feel like I'm a safe person and they can trust me, can take a bit of time. But once that gets established, and I'm not actually talking about a particular person in particular, but I'm talking about kind of a general theme that I've noticed, is that it is really rewarding to start to see the trust develop, and start them to start to begin to make some baby steps towards recovery, right? Whether it's to manage stress better, whether it's to be able to feel like they can cope better throughout the day, or to be able to manage their anger better, so that they can be there for the kids, so that when their kids are escalating in their emotions, then they're not escalating with them, that they're able to stay a little bit grounded with them. Even taking those baby steps and actually be a really big celebration as a therapist, right? Those are success stories just then by itself.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah, so
makes sense.
I didn't really share a success story, but I think as a general, it's that's where I see a lot of reward as a therapist.
Right. And where, from your perspective, where is the opportune age that you might be working with a young person who has been exposed to a high ACEs score?
Person who's been exposed to a young ACEs score, and what you're asking, what age would it be the most best to intervene or to work as
Yes,
in them as
most
therapist?
beneficial for you to be involved, or you are
Yeah,
one of your fellow counselors.
yeah,
When would that be? Like when they're 8, or when they're 15, or
yeah,
20?
yeah. It's hard to say. If I'm if I'm just working with an individual one on one, Alan, ideally it works best when they are ready for change. When they're ready to come on their own will, if they're not being forced by a parent or somebody else or a spouse, but they're ready to come and work on themselves, and they want to be there. That's the ideal age, and it can be anywhere. I've seen it. I've seen people as young as 6, 7, 8 at that place. I've seen people as old as 60 or older who aren't there yet. It's really hard to pinpoint an age. But that being said, as a family therapist, and I use a family systems approach to therapy. So that what that implies is that um, within a family, and family is very broadly defined. It doesn't just have to be a mom and dad and kids, for sure. There's many different ways of looking at family. It could just be the people you're living with presently, right? But within a family, when anybody goes through changes, whether they're positive or negative, it definitely has an impact on everybody else in the family, because they're all connected. All the systems are connected, right? So from that approach, when I'm working with, like, I work really well with parents. So for example, if there's a child who's maybe 6, 7, or 8, or any age of child, and the parents are concerned about the children's behaviors, they're concerned about their mental health or any maybe substance abuse, then if the child doesn't want to come to counseling and they're not engaged and they're just total refusing, I can still work really well with the parents, because any change that they make, and positive change themselves, is going to have an impact on the child, right?
Yeah.
It's going to have a positive influence on the child. So yeah, in answer to your question, it really does depend on the client's motivation, and if the client isn't there, the motivation isn't there, there's still a lot of positive impact that can be done with family members.
Yeah. I read quite a bit about ACEs and child development that way, because I hope that I can be of some value in either reducing adverse childhood experiences, or if you look at it the other way, enhancing childhood experiences for children in our community. Um, One, because of those kids, giving them the best shot at life, but two,
Right.
from a community perspective, man, if you think of all the kids who are dealing with high ACEs scores, I mean, they do not have the capacity really to have a good life, to be a good parent, to be a good employee, to be a good
Mm-hmm.
community member.
Mm-hmm.
They don't enjoy good health, right? Or they could have bad health, a greater
Mm-hmm.
propensity to substance abuse disorders, those kind of things. And those things, when you put those into our community, what do we get, right? We got a whole bunch more crime, and a whole bunch, a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
problems, right?
Right.
And so the more people that you could shift from being encumbered by that to be in kind of have a greater capacity to enjoy their life, the better our community is going to be as well. It's
Right.
like for the
Absolutely.
individual benefit, but for our
Yeah.
community benefit
Yeah.
too. Right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the thing too, that it's not just family systems, it's societal systems, right? So yeah, you're right. When one person, we're all connected in that way. So if one person in society is making positive changes, it impacts society, impacts all of us, right? So definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So even
Yeah.
like if we had somebody, an audience member who is
Mhm.
not a parent, even if they're an
Mhm.
adult who cares and
Mhm.
can help a little person who's having some kind of distress in his life, that makes a
Yeah.
huge difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm part of the Real Dads show. Why I'm so passionate about it is because dads are awesome. Like moms are awesome, dads are awesome. Dads and moms both have strengths, right? And we're all important in the job of raising kids, and we're all like that. We're all connected in that way. In that even if you don't have children, if you have some kind of role or relationship with a child, such as yourself, Alan, being a big brother now, or you drive bus, or you help, you have any kind of role that you help kids or have some kind of interaction with kids. We all have a role to play in raising our future, or basically our future citizens, right? And yeah, it's all on us to create a positive future for our kids and for our future society.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and some of the interventions can be very small, like right, some encouragement at the right time that makes a difference in a person's life, right? You had,
Mhm.
as I did, I'm sure you did, had a special teacher that you think was,
Mhm.
"Oh,
Yeah.
that made a big difference in my
Mhm.
life," right? Or a coach
Mhm.
for a sport or those kind of things, right?
Mhm.
And just
Yeah.
having that strong adult um, support and encouragement made a big difference
Mhm.
growing up, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had a coach, a
Mhm.
hockey coach. His name was
Mhm.
Maurice Lanoux. And I was, I don't know what I was, 14, 15, or maybe 12. Anyways, in that age, and he was the hockey
Mhm.
coach, right?
Mhm.
And I was not an athlete. I wasn't then
Mhm.
an athlete
Mhm.
then. I'm not an athlete today. But
Mhm.
anyways, I went out, played the game, tried
Mhm.
to support with the team, had
Mhm.
wins, and then how do you success?
Mhm.
How do you handle success? And had
Mhm.
failures, and how do you handle the failures?
Mhm.
And Coach Lanoux was somebody who really kind of helped you
Mhm.
get that context, and when things
Mhm.
went bad, kind of give you a hug and
Mhm.
say, hey, it's okay, you got another day
Mhm.
tomorrow, and you're gonna
Mhm.
come back, and what can you learn
Mhm.
from this? Those kind of things.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
those he was I wrote him a letter probably
Mhm.
15 years ago and said,
Mhm.
hey, Coach Lanoux, you probably don't remember me. I obviously didn't make it to the NHL, but I want to thank you for what
Mhm.
you taught me about team sports and that kind of thing. And when he died about 5 years ago, his son called me, and that letter was in his bureau of special papers.
Oh,
He got that letter.
awesome.
So it was
Wow, that's amazing.
valuable for him too, eh? So
Yeah. Yeah, that
yeah,
feels good for you because it was important to him and you shared that with him, and that made his life basically, because it's like, yeah, I had a positive impact on somebody.
right. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah,
There's
and
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you
No.
you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I think that's great because that's a great example of how a coach, not just teaching kids how to play hockey, that coach is teaching them how to be good citizens, good people, how to deal with loss and win, and how to have good sportsman like behavior and all that stuff, right? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I
Mhm.
read this book. What's it called again? The Body Keeps the Score. Van Bessel, is that the author? Do you know that book?
Yeah, I haven't read it, but yeah, yeah, I know about it.
Anyways, one thing that would shock me in that book was
Mhm.
basically where a child who is the victim of mostly sexual abuse as a child, then later they keep the perception for their unless it gets corrected that they were at fault somehow, that they caused the parent or the uncle or the whomever to abuse them that way, that it was their fault, right? And just
Right.
like, wow, that like until you
Mhm.
could address that, that would be a hard thing to get past if you believe that you were the cause of that pain and hurt, and right, that I'm sure that's a common challenge you have when in chatting with young people, right?
Yeah, so what happens though too, it's interesting because it definitely understanding that is important, right? That if a child is abused at such a young age, it's hard for them to comprehend, especially, and usually the people that abuse them are trusted people, people that they loved or they trusted. So it's really hard for a child to comprehend that this person who I trust and love is going to do something bad to me. So it's easier for the child to understand, okay, it was actually my fault.
Right,
But
right,
it's sad, but that's what a child is going to do, because then I don't have to see them as I don't have to see them as this horrible person, because it's me that's horrible. I still trust this person. I love this person. They have to do that. We are biologically programmed to attach to people that we love and care for and trust, right? And so that's part of our attachment. We have to do that. And so it's kind of really unfortunate, but understanding that, yeah, it's really important to support that child, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and helping them get through that can be difficult.
Yeah, no, I can sure imagine that that would be a
Mm,
challenging situation. But it makes sense, right? That the
yeah.
child doesn't want to
Mhm.
perceive their
Yeah.
the special person in their life as an
Mhm.
uh, whatever, a messed up
That
person,
person. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing. But I
Mhm.
guess it's always kind of a pattern normally, and I don't know what the
Mhm.
exceptions are. That hurt people is the phrase, right?
Yeah.
That's a common cycle that continues,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Unfortunately,
absolutely. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's it happens with bullying. That's it happens with abuse. Yeah, for sure. And it's important that when we're dealing with hurt people or people that seem like they're hurt, that we're offering them compassion. We're trying to help them. We're not trying to judge them. We're not trying to ridicule them, because that just perpetuates the problem, right?
Right.
So if there's people we're concerned about, the best thing to do is just ask them, how are you doing? Like, are you okay? Do you want to talk about anything? Like, you know what I mean? Because we can all support people that way.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. So, Brad, I talked to. I'll just ask you the question flat out, and
Sure.
then you can tell me. Do
Okay.
you see a counselor?
Do I what?
Do you go see a counselor?
Not presently. I definitely have. I've seen 3 to 4 therapists in my life, but this is not. This is all as I've been going, studying to be a therapist and becoming a therapist. So I definitely have, and we're not. We're usually encouraged as therapists, especially in training as students. We're encouraged to see therapy ourselves, and the reason why is because we need to be strong mentally ourselves and mental health with our mental health in order to support others, right? So I can imagine how hard it would be for myself to be telling a client, well, maybe, it seems like you're having a lot of problems with your depression. This is maybe what could help you, trying this and this and this. But how could I say that if I'm in the same place and I'm not helping myself? You know what I mean? So I think we really need to keep that in check for ourselves. A big part is awareness as a therapist, about um, our own garbage, our own dirty laundry, and then trying to figure that out. And definitely a professional can be helpful for that, because um, as with anybody, seeing a professional therapist is very helpful because you have somebody who has training in mental health and addictions and trauma to see some of the blind spots you might be having, to see
Yeah,
some of the things that, okay, sometimes we just think we're great, and that's fine, but there may be something that's really bothering us and we're not sure what it is. So if you see a therapist, you can talk about your stuff, try to work things out, and then maybe the therapist can see things you're not, and that can really help. That can really help you in the long run.
yeah, I agree entirely. I think that you're. I have an employee family assistance plan. I use it quite
Okay.
regularly. Even if I
Yeah.
don't necessarily
Mhm.
have any challenges, I go
Mhm.
and I'll say, all right, here's what I've been doing. Here's
Mhm.
changes I've made. Here's tweaks I've
Mhm.
changed this. Here's how I'm. This is kind of the path I'm on. I think this makes sense. What do you think?
Mhm.
Somebody who's outside of that look and say,
Mhm.
oh, well, yeah,
Mhm.
that makes sense. Or wait a minute, have you thought of
Yeah.
X?
Mhm.
Right? Because
Right.
you're in the forest, you can't see the
Yeah.
trees. Right? That's the reality
Yeah.
of it.
Exactly. Yeah. We're all like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's good with anything. Like, there's something called Johara's window, whereas, and I can't exactly draw it out in my head right now, but basically it's looking at, oh yeah, there you go. So it's basically there's blind spots that we all have, right?
Right.
Um, And so the beauty of being in relationships with people, whether it's your spouse, your partner, whether it's your children, your family, your parents, whatever it is, the beauty of those close relationships, Alan, is that they can see those blind spots more than we can, right? And so sometimes, we might be really offended when somebody like a close, like a partner brings up to us, you kind of act like this sometimes. We might be like, what are you talking about? I don't, you act like this. I don't act like this.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But really, if we take that in, that can be really helpful for us as a person to transform ourselves. It's like, you know what, you're right. Like I do flip out at you guys once in a while, and I'm really sorry. Like, and maybe I should work on that. Maybe I should talk to somebody, or maybe I should look up online what I should do about it. So it's kind of, those are good opportunities. And so a therapist is in a good place because they have special training, and also they're impartial to your family, or they're impartial to your situation. They're more likely to give you good objective feedback, rather than somebody who might just want to tell you something because they want you to feel better, like a loved one usually, right? So
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
And it also, well, you said impartial. It's not where this is part
Mm.
of a long-standing
Yeah.
conflict or anything. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, well,
Mm.
why don't you put the laundry in the right basket? Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I can do that, right? So, I mean, that's a pretty small point, but that
Yeah.
sometimes the things you get worked up with, well, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say that. I'm sure you have an
Yeah.
excellent marital relationship, but sometimes the things
Mm.
that you do are such small things to change. And if it makes the other person happy to change it, and it's not a big deal for you to do it, why wouldn't you, right? If it's going to
Yeah.
make for a more harmonious relationship, right? So,
Yeah, and I like how you bring that up, Alan, about the putting something in the wrong laundry basket, because couples fight about that stuff all the time. They fight about, banging the the toothbrush against the counter when they're done the brushing their teeth, or they fight about putting the socks in the wrong drawer. It's actually the stuff underneath that I love, and that's why I like working with couples, because it's not that stuff. It's not the stuff on the surface. When you go deeper, there's something there. And when you
right.
help couples find that, it's such a big a cathartic moment for them, because it's like, yeah, that's what's going on between us, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool. Cool.
yeah, yeah.
So, Brad,
Yeah.
we're not done yet, but I wanted to let you
Okay.
know so you're not shocked. I sing a song at the end of this
I
break.
know.
You know that? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So tell me what kind of music do you like to listen to?
What kind of listening to me? 90s.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me think about something from the 90s. Okay. Do you have an artist specific? Let me think if there's something I know then.
There is
No?
anything from the 90s. My joke is I like anything from the 90s except for the Titanic song. Because when I was like 15, 16 or whatever, when it came out, and 17, and it was played like crazy amounts of time on the radio, and yeah.
Right. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
That was huge. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, any parting words for our viewers that you could say, like we've already talked about, mental health, using the counseling services, trying to, access things that way that will improve your life and the relationship you have with the special people in your life. But so there is no stigma. I don't think. Like
Yeah.
if you have a mental health concern in any way, go and talk to
Yeah.
somebody about it, get some help with it, even like online one or in person, or read a book on that kind of subject, something like that to address it, right? And certainly using counselors is a real important thing. So do you have any other words of wisdom for somebody who might be struggling? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I'd like to do that, but then also just kind of talk a bit about more where people can find me and stuff like that. And
Do.
so yeah, absolutely. So the only thing I would add to that, I think you have some really good points there about the stigma. The stigma is getting much better, so it is becoming more accepted to get help for your mental health and stuff like that. Even among like male kind of dominated industries and stuff, where you have mostly men working, it's starting to become more of a thing. It's like, dude, you should talk to somebody. That's great. Well, we need more of that. But the other thing too is that if you're not sure about therapy, try it out. And usually, what I've noticed for people that are hesitant with trying therapy, they've never done it before. Usually after the first session, they feel relieved. They feel like, holy, this felt great. I got to talk about some things that I know this person's not going to tell anybody else. I got to get some good feedback, and yeah, just try it out and see how it goes. And you know what? It may not be, you may not want to go back, and that's okay too. But at least you tried it.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah,
As
so
an
as
experience worth experimenting with, anyways, right?
absolutely,
So,
yeah.
yeah, cool.
So as to find me, so again, I work at Associates Counseling Services. I'm Brad Moser, registered psychologist. The phone number in Lethbridge, 403-381-6000. And our website is talkinghelps.ca. That's talkinghelps, all in one word, .ca. And you can also search for me, Brad Moser, registered psychologist, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.
Social media, he's everywhere.
Trying to. It's been a crazy upward learning curve for me.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let me tell you about a learning curve I did recently that I've been having a whole lot of fun with. There's this thing called Twitch. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes. What is it?
Well, basically, it's kind of an online. It's traditionally been for gamers, and where you go and you live broadcast that you're playing the game, and people watch you play the game, and comment, and ask questions, that kind of stuff. So they have an aspect of it now for musicians, and I'm not really a musician, but I like to sing. So then I set up a Twitch channel, Alan_Acapellas on Twitch-TV. And every day I do a live stream singing on Twitch, and I've been doing it for 28 days now of COVID isolation. Having a great time with it. So much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And so that's something
awesome.
I've never taken the time to figure this out at the time. And
Yeah.
I think I found out about it on Wednesday. Thursday I set up my profile, and Friday I started doing my little singing thing. So yeah, it's fun stuff.
Okay,
yes.
Cool.
So for any viewers, at 8:30, I'm coming back under Twitch-TV, Alan Acapellas, and I'll do some singing. Usually I sing for an hour. So yeah. All
Awesome.
just acapella.
Yeah. Cool.
Now, 90s song, man. How about a John Mellencamp?
Yep, sounds good.
Sounds good? All right. Okay, I think I remember this one. On a Greyhound 30 miles beyond Jamestown, he saw the sunset on the Tennessee line. Looked at the young man who was riding beside him, said, I'm old, kind of worn out inside. I worked my whole life in the steel mills near Gary. With my father before me, I helped build this land. I'm 77 with God as my witness. I earned every dollar that passed through my hand. My family and friends are the best things I know. Do I have a needle? I carry them home. Days turn to minutes and minutes to memories. Life takes away the dreams that we have planned. You are young, yeah, you are the future. So tough it up and suck it up. Be the best you can. The Greyhound kept rolling along the Ohio River. The old man kept talking about his life and his times. He fell asleep with his head against the window. An honest man's pillow is his peace of mind. Days turn to minutes and minutes to memories. Life takes away the dreams that we have planned. You are young, yeah, you are the future. So tough it up and suck it up. Be the best you can. Something like that.
Good. That was awesome. I love it. That was great. You really captured, because John Mellencamp is a great vocalist. I think you really captured that. You really captured the voice, and yeah, that was great. Loved it.
Yeah. So that song, that there's something I got wrong. I have to go look it up again, because it's like that part about you are young, you are the future. I don't quite. Oh no, suck it up and suck it up and tough it out. That's I got the phrasing wrong. I'll have to listen to John Mellencamp to get the dialed in on that. So, but Brad, we are at an hour. This has been fun. Any parting words you want to have for us?
No, I'm just gonna enjoy putting my kids to bed and telling them how much I love them, and this helped. I appreciate it. It's good. I appreciate talking about my practice, about my work as a therapist, and the work I've done with kids, and just being a dad overall. So I appreciate the casual conversation now.
Well, you're a very caring, compassionate man who's making a big difference in people's lives, and I thank you for that, sir.
Awesome. Thank you,
All
Rob.
right.
Appreciate it.
All right. We'll see ya.
See ya. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Rob.